Thank you very much for coming through this evening. I know that life is very hectic, and particularly this time of the year, so I appreciate you making the time to come through, particularly for this evening's talk, which I think is something which has probably come across our WhatsApp or Facebook feed quite a lot in the recent months. As we approach the end of the year, and we plan our holidays and things like that, it's always important to consider some of the ugly things that we need to think about as parents. And it's becoming more and more of a reality. And I think for a number of us, in a context like Sandton, in a school like St. David's, often I'll have parents that, whether directly or indirectly, will say things that, oh, but it's not us, it won't happen to us. It's them, it's the other people. And as we'll hear tonight, that unfortunately, with something like human trafficking, there is not necessarily that discrimination between us and them. So this evening, we have Tabitha Lage here, and Tabitha is the founder of the Hope Risen Foundation, and has been operating on the ground in the field of anti-human trafficking, protecting children for 10 years. Tabitha is also part of the government anti-human trafficking task team, as well as the rapid response team. Tabitha has spoken in Parliament, assisting to bridge the gap between government and on-the-ground NGOs, with international training and a passion to end slavery and help protect people in South Africa. The Hope Risen Foundation is a non-profit organization that is strategically and passionately ending modern-day slavery. They believe in spreading hope, love, and justice through prevention, rescue, and restoration. Survivors have been rescued, traffickers have been arrested, and slavery has been pushed back by people like yourselves. So please help me welcome Tabitha.
Hi, Mom and Dad. And I'm assuming parents, teachers are here as well this evening, who I no doubt can also be parents. Is there anyone here this evening that's not a parent or not working in the school? Okay, so we all have some understanding of children, which is great. And I can relate to you this evening because I'm a mom myself to 2 children. So I know exactly what some of you may be feeling right now, because tonight is a topic, it is a talk that actually isn't that easy to talk about. And there's a purpose in why you have each come here tonight. You've come here because you are wanting to find out about something, and that something has to do with your children. So I think it's absolutely great that you are here this evening. But before I go on, I want to thank these 2 wonderful teachers. Sue, thank you very much for getting in contact with me. And thank you to both of you for allowing this evening to actually happen. Because what you are doing this evening is that you are definitely showing how much you care for the children in your school. So thank you very much, and welcome to the 2 of you. And the same goes for and the same goes for you, Mom and Dads. Tonight you are here, which shows that you actually care about your children. Now you would think that would be something that every parent would do, and every talk that a parent would want to be at, but that's not always the case. Because as mentioned earlier on, we tend to think that this cannot happen to any of us, or it cannot affect our family. But that is not the case. So for the first sort of 45 minutes or so, I am going to, I'm just going to look at the time, I am going to talk about kidnapping / abduction, and I'm going to talk to you about human trafficking. And then I'm going to allow for time to give you the opportunity to ask questions. Is that okay? Okay, so if you've got a question, I always say park it, don't forget it, but park it because I want to answer it for you. I don't want you to leave here without that question being answered. If for some reason it doesn't, then we can connect afterwards or we can make a plan. But I don't want you to leave without that question of yours to be answered. Okay. All right. So, who received the hysterical messages that went round on WhatsApp over the last couple of months or so. Okay. So most of us received those messages, and I have to be honest with you, they were ridiculous. And the majority of them, of those particular messages, were made up. Okay? And one tends to ask the question, why would somebody even want to make up a specific scenario like that? The reality, though, of those messages is that there was some truth to different forms of definitions. So I couldn't say it was false information in terms of what the definitions were, but I could tell you that the incidents were false. And unfortunately, our media today are not doing a very good job in bringing hope to our country at all. And so the media are not helping to bring truth in what's going on out there, and so we are receiving the end of what is not actually being happening. It's not the reality. So yes, I'm going to talk about the fact that kidnapping and abduction is happening. I'm going to tell you about statistics. I'm going to speak truth to you tonight. I do hope you will not partner with fear. What I want you to do is I want you to feel somewhat empowered and equipped after you've received this information. Further to that will enable you to help your own children. Now, we do a three-pronged process in a lot of schools. We educate the teachers, we educate the parents, and we educate the children on how to protect themselves. Tonight, I'm here to give you information on what's really going on. I can give you some pointers on how to protect, but furthermore to that, due to time, I can't give you that much more information. But you are welcome at any time and point. Please take one of our leaflets. You can email us, you can contact us. We've got a website. We hold numerous private workshops across the year where we can educate you further, and there are a lot more. Okay. Are you all still good? Okay, you are allowed to smile in this talk. Okay? It's heavy, and it's going to be heavy, but let's remember that there is hope, we can be empowered, and we can equip our children. Okay, so first of all, I want to start off by sharing with you some statistics. And I want to start off with that first because sometimes we go through a talk like this and we still sit in doubt and wonder whether the woman in front of you is actually speaking truth. Okay? Reported missing persons from the year 2000 to the year 2015, because that is the updated stats we have at this moment and I have access to. Adults, 49,346 adults have been missing. Of those adults found, 25,543 adults were found. Gone, don't know where these adults are, particularly businessmen. 23,803 adults are still missing. Families cannot find them. Nobody knows where they are. They're completely off the grid. When we look at children from the year 2000 to 2015, 14,252 children went missing. And remember, what classifies as a minor or a child is 18 and under. Okay? Found, 10,295. Gone off the grid, missing, cannot find these children at all. To this day, families still traumatized, don't know where the children are. That's just under 4,000. That is a lot. Human trafficking cases reported just in Gauteng, 810. And that was in the year 2015 to 2017. Total in South Africa, 2,132. Those are hectic stats, and those stats are real. That comes from a database that has been provided to me through a very, very good source. So all of us have a responsibility to ensure the care and protection of our children. All of us do, especially as parents. It's not just the responsibility of the teachers, it's not just responsibility of our churches, it's not just the responsibility of the government, it's all of our responsibility, including mine, and including Hope Risen Foundation. And that furthermore filters down to the child themselves and the community that we are at large. The responsibility to create a safe environment physically as well as online. We need to identify the risk factors and understand what is going on in our communities to coexist with several high-risk factors. And I'm going to talk about 3 of them, and that's kidnapping, abduction, as well as human trafficking. Amongst these risk factors, as I've mentioned, there are serious threats to the well-being of individuals, families, businesses, and states, believe it or not. So let's look at kidnapping. Does anybody want to try and give me a definition of what kidnapping is? What is kidnapping? Taking a child for money. Taking a child for money. Okay?
Isn't that generally organized? Kidnapping is generally organized for a purpose.
It can
in
be.
the sense that it's like for ransom or with the objective of hurting the family in some way, getting something from the family. It's generally quite organized and quite structured. It's not random, willy-nilly, just take a child off the street. It's quite...
Yes. It's normally pre-planned, premeditated, and often you find that, we had to talk about children, and often you find that children have been watched long enough before kidnapping happens. And often that can be by somebody the children know. It is not always strangers. When I go into human trafficking, I show you statistically the percentage of trafficking cases that happen by people that are known to the children than those who aren't, and it's higher. Yeah, I can already hear some of you go, it's crazy, isn't it? And you wouldn't think. That's why, just from coming from a mom, I really want to encourage you parents to please engage in in-depth conversation with your children's friends' parents. My children who are friends with my children and their friends, their parents know what my family's message is, what we believe in, and what my mandate is. So if my child is going to your house and I don't want my child to be playing, let's say for example, iPad or Call of Duty, then I inform the parent. The same goes for anything else. Please don't take my child with you to a mall while you are doing your shopping. It's those kinds of things. Please think about those kinds of things as a family. Engage in those conversations with the parents and your children. Because if that happens and your child knows that this is not what I, as a part of the family, believe in, they are going to start saying something and red flags will start to come up. And it starts to become a protective mechanism. Again, it's empowering your children, it's equipping your children. If they don't know that that is not what you don't want to happen, they're going to do it, and they're going to think that it's okay. So let's look at kidnapping. It is a crime during which the victims and their families are subjected in a relatively short period of time to one of the most traumatic physical and psychological experiences. It is the most traumatic situation for any parent to go through. I have seen it for 10 years, when a child has been taken away from them and they cannot find that child. Has anybody in this room ever, even for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, experienced that? It's awful, it's terrible. You're in the toy shop and suddenly your child goes running and you can't find them. can you imagine that for 24 hours, 48 hours, and more? Now, I've been asked to please share what the difference between kidnapping and abduction is. There's not a major difference, but I'm going to share the differences for you this evening. The main difference is that all kidnapping is abduction, but not all abduction is kidnapping, and I'm going to elaborate on why. Kidnapping is taking away or forcefully transporting a person against their will. Remember, this is children or adults. And holding them in false imprisonment, a confinement without legal authority, and the kidnapping is usually done for a motive or ransom. When we talk about ransoms, we have had a very high percentage of kidnappings this year which have involved ransoms. We recently had a teenage boy who was kidnapped, and this became part of a ransom syndicate where a lot of money was to be issued to release the boy. And thanks to a good team in the Hawks, we worked very closely with the Hawks. They were able to navigate the situation really, really well. According to the South African criminal law, kidnapping consists of the unlawful intentional deprivation of a person's freedom of movement and/or, if such a person is a child, the unlawful intentional deprivation of a parent's control over the child. Okay, it's actually good for you to know what our law states, because we find parents are going through a situation. They think this is what's going to be done, and when it comes to the law, because we don't understand our rights and we don't actually understand the law, it's not often how it gets to play out. So it is very important for you to actually know, especially in this area. Kidnapping must be distinguished as from abduction, as the latter is specifically committed against a parent's right of authority over a minor. Okay, so what you find is that if mom and dad, I'm going to use this example because it's a simple one to use. If mom and dad have decided that they are going to separate, they are going to get a divorce, but there is a court case going on over the children, who gets the children, and it has been decided that mom gets the children, but dad comes to collect the kids from school where he's actually not allowed to do that, but dad does take the children. That is abduction. Does that make sense? Okay. Kidnapping. Let's say, for example, a child is walking home from school, walking on their own down the path, and a car pulls to the side and grabs that child and puts that child into the car. The child goes missing. The child is not reachable, we cannot ping the phone, so it needs to be reported to the Missing Persons Bureau immediately. Or your nearest police station. And please, if the police station tells you that you need to wait 48 hours to report a missing child, please don't listen to that. That is not the case. Missing children can be reported immediately. Okay. You make sure that a case is opened, you have a case number, and you get the investigating officer's name. If anything, you do not walk away without an inquiry. Please, moms, may I ask you to share that information with your lovely helpers in your home, the helpers that are with your children a lot. Please make sure that those amazing women know this information. It's very, very important for them to know that as well. Okay. How are you all doing? Smile. Okay. There are 3 types of abductions. When a stranger takes a child away for criminal purposes, such as sexual assault or ransom. When a child is stolen to be brought by the abductor, or when a parent removes a child from the other parent's What makes a situation kidnapping? The following things classify an abduction as kidnapping. The child is detained, taken away some distance from where it was abducted, and is held for ransom, or for sexual purposes, or for revenge, or the child is taken in order to keep it permanent. According to our law in South Africa, kidnapping is a separate crime from abduction, as well as human trafficking. Any questions there around kidnapping and abduction? Just quickly. Does the definition sound clear to you? Does it make sense? Do you understand it a little more? We have a group called Pink Ladies. You're all nodding. They do amazing work where they report immediately, a lot publicly, when a child goes missing or an animal goes missing. Now, I'm sure one of the questions that's in your head is, do all those missing persons get kidnapped or abducted or are human trafficked? Not all of them. Some children run away from home. Home is not a happy place, as it should be, and some children actually run away. And then what happens? They become missing. And so in order to safeguard that perhaps they have not been kidnapped or have been kidnapped, you can't take that chance and not publicly announce that the person has gone missing. It is better for us to say that they have gone missing because they have gone missing, but we also sometimes don't know if they've been kidnapped yet or if they run away from home. Okay. And in a lot of instances, we find that children are running away from home. The other instant that filters into that type of area is that a lot of our kids, especially teenagers, are being groomed online, and they are befriending strangers. They think they know who they are, but they don't. And a grooming process takes place. Do you all know what grooming is? Okay. So it's a very subtle form of trying to get, so, oh, you know, you're so beautiful. Suddenly now there's a fight at home, and she needs to talk to someone. She doesn't want to talk to mom and dad because, you know, that's the way it is. And because there's this friend who she can trust, she then ends up meeting with this person for a coffee, and then suddenly it's a this and it's a that, and then before you know it, she's gone missing. And we had a case like that last year, April, where we had an hysterical mother whose daughter never has her phone off, and it was about 4 o'clock and she still couldn't get hold of her. So we pinged the phone and we found out that she was already in Cape Town. We then found out that she had a one-way ticket with this guy to Dubai. One-way ticket. That means she was going to go and never come back. Unbeknown to her, the young girl. So that's also what's coming into play, just as much as kids running away. And then yes, there are those incidents where children are kidnapped, as I just shared with you. Okay. Human trafficking. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. Why do we call it modern day slavery? We call it modern day slavery because back then, in Wilberforce's time, we all thought that slavery had ended. Although he did the most incredible job, it never did end. And so today, because it's still going on, we call it modern day slavery. And it is the buying and selling of a human being with the intent to exploit them. And that is women, men, and children. So human trafficking involves money. That's the power behind it. It is a multi-billion industry. Because unlike drugs, which you can sell off once a human being you can sell over and over and over again. We have a national resource line dedicated 24/7 to taking any possible trafficking situations or calls. And so because we reach the public far and wide, we hand out a lot of these numbers. And so you can imagine the calls that land up coming in. This line was opened 2 years ago because it's specifically dedicated just to this area. And since then we've had 9,000 calls, of which 1,000 of those calls, 100%, just the National Resource Line. I'm not talking from law departments, I'm not talking from the NPA, I'm not talking from social development, I'm not talking from my department. Just that line, we've had 1,000 cases of human trafficking come out of there. Now, earlier on I shared with you 810 cases were in Gauteng. Where does human trafficking happen? It happens everywhere. I go into informal settlements and I go into the most bestest high-end estates. It happens everywhere. We have rescued children out of places that you could never imagine these things could happen. So the question is, why does human trafficking happen? Why is this going on? And why are our children targeted? Our children are targeted purposefully, one main area, besides the secondary area which I will mention to you, and that is pornography. Our children are used to be sexually exploited to allow for another person's gratification. Our youngest victim was 1 year old. Moms, dads, please. We have got to start having hard conversations with our children. The struggle with pornography is on the rise like you cannot believe. If your child has a phone, I'm telling you now, if your child has not seen any form of pornography, I would love to meet that child. We've got to have hard conversations, open, raw conversations about this. If we don't, we're going to allow this to continue, and it's going to fuel and fuel and fuel and fuel. Pornography specifically changes your brain. We do a full-on workshop teaching teachers, parents, and children around the harmful effects of pornography. So when we question, well, what do they do with children? Because I get asked this all the time. What do they even do with children? Why would someone want to buy a child? And what do they do with them? They're not strong. They're not, they can't do anything. But they're used in the sex industry. And we sometimes think, if we're struggling with pornography, we sometimes think because we're opening a computer that we're not playing any part in this, we're not actually doing it. But you actually are. You're fueling human trafficking. You yourself is a perpetrator. It's also good to educate your children that if they are under 18 and they are sharing inappropriate pictures to one another on WhatsApp or on the phone, it is illegal. First up, it's completely illegal. But also encourage them not to even engage in those things. Remove themselves from those kinds of groups. Okay. The other area, the secondary area that children are used is for labour purposes. So it's normally the dirty, disgusting, dangerous jobs that the children are used. And although we don't generally find that here in our country as much as we do in the more African countries like your Congo, your Ghana, please don't think that we have nothing to do with it. Please don't think that that's irrelevant and it doesn't affect us. Because it actually does, and I'll give you 2 examples why. First of all, who likes to wear eyeshadow? Come on, moms, don't tell me. Okay, so, do you know how sometimes we get that sparkle, that lovely little glow, that sparkle in our eyeshadow? There's an ingredient in there called mica, M-I-C-A. And it's an ingredient that is mined from India. But it's mined from little girls. And it's mined from them because they are tiny enough to be forced to go into the mines and use their little fingers to pick the specific ingredient called mica. And then that ingredient is used in all our products. There is a company internationally that works full-time to try and stop this ingredient from getting into our food. That's what they do. So again, what role could you play? You could look at the ingredients of your makeup as well as be a voice and start asking suppliers some hard questions. Are they actually searching whether child labour, child trafficking is happening in their supply chain? The other area is, do you like chocolate? Yes, that's a good one. Coffee. Coffee, good. The other area is, who likes to eat fish? I like fish. So we go and buy fish from the frozen freezer. And do we know how that fish is picked and packed and how it gets onto the boat? Well, sadly, in most areas, it's coming from little children. Little children in the areas like Ghana, where a lot of them are very malnourished. They haven't eaten for days. They're dying of malaria. They're being beaten. And we kind of fall part of that chain. Now, I'm not saying that we can be perfect in everything that we eat and wear. It's just not possible. But the role that you can play and be active about it is start asking questions and start researching and looking into these things and asking Woolworths, who picks and packs your strawberries on your agriculture farm? Maybe that bottle of wine that you drink would also be good for you to ask that supplier who's actually on the wineries, on the farms, producing that wine. So just some of the areas that you can look into. How are you all doing? Okay. I'm watching time. We're close on 7. A trafficker once said to me, fresh meat at a price. And a trafficker once said to me, the younger, the better. Our children and our youth are at high risk today in the human trafficking area. They are extremely vulnerable, and traffickers and perpetrators love vulnerability. It's not easy to bring up kids today, it really isn't. And unfortunately, we've got a lot out there that's shouting at our kids, and there's a lot out there that our kids have access to. But the more you empower and equip your children, the more you're going to protect them. I won't be able to go into all of these things. Traffickers use their victims for the sole purpose of personal gain, often to either make large profits of money from their exploitation or to obtain free services or labour. So in some of our cases, we have rescued children from brothels here in our area. And I was just probably about 3 months ago when we did an intervention, probably about 3 kilometers from here. That's how close this is. That's the reality of what's going on. And all of us are vulnerable. All of us need to just be aware to what's happening. How many of you got teenagers? So sexual exploitation, I mentioned this earlier on. This is the area where a lot of the children we tend to find are. And this is mainly where your brothels and your clubs, I mean, I think all of you know what Rivonia Road is like. In the more poorer communities and vulnerable areas, for instance your border posts, we have a lot of organ trafficking. Have you heard of that before? Organ and body parts trafficking. And you can also go and Google a hospital in Durban was involved along with a transport company around the removal of organ body parts. There's a huge market, there's a lot of money to be made. I see some of you are not in Boogie, so you obviously know about it. And that is mainly for looting purposes. It is used on the black market. So, when we look at where trafficking is happening, we ask ourselves, well, how does this even get into our country? How is this even possible? I mean, where are these traffickers? What are they doing? How are they allowed to even be in here? We never had a law in our country against human trafficking up until 2015. We fought very hard for this law to come into place. Previously, we could convict, but we had to choose every offence possible in that case, and it was a nightmare. But today, Zuma passed the law in 2015, and we have one of the best laws in the world against human trafficking, which is incredible. The only challenge is implementing it, as you can imagine. You are. So, you can see, you can hear how new this is even to our government system. Very, very new. And so we have got a long way to go. But it's not for us to rely on the government to change things and do things. We need to play out. Yes, they've got a role to do. I absolutely agree. But we have a role ourselves, especially us who are on the ground. We are the eyes, the ears, the everything. I won't be able to, because of time purposes, I won't be able to go through every red flag, but I'm more than happy to email it. We have a document called Red Flags, which just assists people to be able to identify, perhaps you're at a mall, maybe you've gone out somewhere to an event, and you have identified that this could possibly be trafficking. Those red flags will be able to tell you and help you along what that is. It's quite a document, so it's better if I email it to you, and you're welcome to email it out to everybody else. The profile of a trafficker. What do you think a profile of a trafficker looks like? Anyone? Okay, there's no one look. It's not dark hair, blue eyes. It can be anybody. Okay, I'm going to break for some questions.
I've read about people taking photos of other people's children, and not by accident, intentionally. People realize eventually, and there was an article by Kate Photos at Melrose Arch where someone said there's someone taking photos of your kids, who's making it as though it's a selfie, but it's actually not. And I had some incident with me in Rosebank where I realized strangers were taking photos, but they were with us, they were holding them, and we couldn't figure out what is the point of the photos. They just, they're not in any compromising positions, they're not undressed, they're fully clothed at the Thames boat. Why do they take photos? Is that unrelated? Is it just now a thing that we all think is a problem?
Just say that again for me.
So I'll give you the one example where there was an article about, there was a lady at Melrose Arch, and there was a play area in the centre. And someone called in and said, listen, there's someone taking photos of the children. And they realized, he made as if he was taking selfies, but they could obviously see on his selfie stick that he wasn't taking pictures of himself. He was specifically taking photos of a particular 2 or 3 children. And they were told, and that's happened to me as well, where I won't proof, and eventually my husband and I realized they were actually taking, they also made it look like they were taking photos of each other. And my husband realized they were taking photos of my sons. This is about 2 years ago. So what is the point of those actual photos? They're not undressed, they're not, there was nothing, I just can't see what the value of those photos would be.
Okay, so we had a similar incident at a very well-known mall in a play area as well. Mm-hmm. What we have found through our experience and through our cases is that photos taken even like that of children, technology is an amazing thing. And they make a lot of money. This couple that we caught was selling the photos at 1,000 rand a photo. Now that's a lot of money. So yeah.
So that's actually that's got nothing to do with trafficking or wanting to kidnap the child. Really, there's not without rumors that they have. That they're shopping, that they take photos of things, they put these posts on the website and people bid on your children and they steal them for their money. That's what I would do.
So it can lead to that, but if you really think about it, kidnapping, abduction, pornography, human trafficking, it's very messy, it's intertwined. So there's going to be something going on there.
And then just regarding when you mentioned the mica and the eyeshadow as one example,
yes.
Is it the fact that any product that's got mica is managed by children, is farmed by children, any product?
Yes, and you can go and Google it, and you can follow the foundation that's actually trying to stop it. And so you know what's happening now is a lot of products are not putting the ingredients in. You had a question, sir.
I wondered what you thought was the appropriate age to have a discussion with your kids about pornography and the dangers of...
Thank you for asking that. It's such a great question. Well done to you. The earlier the better. My daughter's 8, and she will tell you what pornography is. Have it as early as you can, between 6 and 8.
And some kids don't even know what sex is at that age. How do you describe pornography to them?
You'll be horrified, surprised, happy. I don't know what you as a mom or a dad agree to in the home, but you will be shocked probably at what your kids know at 6.
Because they'll be there.
The earlier the better. We run, if you want to connect with us, I actually run workshops for mom and dads on how to engage in that conversation and how to navigate it and what to do. With schools, we get asked a lot to go to schools to talk about pornography, and I think it's great. If your child hasn't had any formal exposure or education around sex, don't introduce pornography to them. They must have an understanding of that first, and that talk you've got to have 6, 8, between 6 and 8. You just unfortunately can't. And please, mom and dads, don't use birds and bees. Get real. We've got to start getting these real words out, what everything is. Don't make up funny, sweet names. Because unfortunately, as I was saying earlier on to somebody, if you type in certain words now in Google, you'll be so horrified at what comes up. And our poor children are then exposed to these kinds of things, and they associate those words that you think you're helping by telling them, and it's not. So be real. Let's get real. We've got to empower our kids. We've got to get them one up before anybody else tries to get them one up. But you're welcome to contact me if you would like to know about those workshops.
And I was wondering about the phone. So you said if your child has a phone, they have access to pornography. But it seems like the phone plays a critical role in helping find children sometimes when they go missing. What is your view on kids having phones or not?
So the reality is we have phones, we have iPads, technology's out there. That's the reality of it. So the question is, how are you in your family going to navigate that? So you're going to talk. You're going to have these hardcore talks. So that if they come up against that, they already know that mom has told them that that's not actually right. And mom's told me that if a picture comes up of a naked woman or whatever it is, I must immediately go and tell her. You need to be open to allow your children to come and tell you these things. Please don't condemn them. Please don't do that. You will break your children if you do that. Give them a safe place to come and talk to you about anything. Because the world that's coming after these kids is ugly. If they can't come to you, who are they going to go to? The wrong people. And we want them to come to you. If they've come to you and they've said to you, or you find stuff on their phone, please don't drag them into a room and start screaming and shouting and beating. A okay, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your children, but please, I just want to encourage you, don't do that. It's hard and shameful as it is for them. And I guarantee you there's no ways they went looking for it. It came to them, because that's what technology unfortunately does. But the more you have the conversation with them, and the more you empower them, and allow them to come to you and talk to you about anything, the better chance you've got of them not doing any of that stuff. I promise you. They won't even be bothered with it. Does that help?
You mentioned that sort of this whole pornography and trafficking is definitely on the rise, it's on the increase. And you've mentioned that you've done quite a few interventions in that. And that we've got the best laws and, you know, our laws are pretty progressive worldwide. What is happening to these traffickers? Are they being prosecuted? Is it a case that they've fallen into the criminal justice system and will wait and see in 6 years' time?
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, as a parent, it's so stressful. You know, what you want to know is that those people are captured and put behind bars and that the operation is taken down. But you hear a lot of cases of abduction and kidnapping, but you hear the kid goes missing and then you hear nothing else.
Unfortunately, we have a failing system. We have a system that is so backlogged. We have a system that has not enough resources. And I work hand in hand with these guys. I have my own rescue team. We have our own rescue team. For the very reason that I could not stand knowing that we couldn't act when we needed to act. But there's certain laws that we have to abide by as well. So I have to have them on board with us. But the fact is too, these guys are so packed with stuff, they can't even keep up. They get no debriefing, they get no support, nothing.
So like for example, when you go and do intervention, those people handcuffed, are they put behind bars?
Yes.
Okay.
But then they've got to go through a big system along that way. And unfortunately that's not in my hands. That's when the NPA comes in, and that's your whole system. You've also got, just think about this as well as a mom. Yes, we want those traffickers behind. I don't disagree with that at all. But can you imagine if your child went through something like that?
I can't, because
and now you've got to put your child through a court. And a whole process around trying to prosecute these traffickers. I'm not saying it mustn't be done, but I just want you to understand that some parents cannot put themselves through it any longer. That they're already so traumatized, the child is already so traumatized, that they actually will not put themselves through it. And so what happens is they drop cases. It's hard, it's so hard, it is very hard. Ooh, okay.
I just wanted to ask about social media and, and how, in your experience, you might get with that. How, is that used? Have you found that social media is a mechanism for traffickers and that sort of stuff to identify potential victims? And what can we do to sort of be aware of that, monitor that?
You know, Facebook is great, but it's really not great either. And so, Instagram as well. So a lot of traffickers are now on Facebook. And it goes back to that example I gave you of the kind of grooming that's being engaged on Facebook. And that's why when I talk to the children, I really encourage them to please don't friend just anybody. You know, our kids want the most likes and they want the most friends because it makes them look good and popular, especially if they're not at school or maybe they're just going through a lot of trouble. They get there, the gratification and the desire and the need from that is having as many friends on Facebook as possible. And you know, traffickers are very clever on Facebook, so they will Facebook you and say, remember we met at that event, you know, where all those people were in it, and you sort of think, geez, I'm so embarrassed, gee, I don't remember, but yeah, okay, let me be friends with that person. And then before you know it, you know, you're friends. And then they have access to all your information, especially if settings are not private. I've done a lot of research and a lot of teams have their settings on public. They don't even realize that their settings are on public for the whole world to see. And so I've just tried to encourage and reached out as much as we can to get them to go to private settings. And please do not friend every person that comes away. If you honestly don't know that person, they shouldn't be friending them at all. If they haven't in the flesh seen them and had good conversation, and someone in the circle knows them, if they don't friend. Instagram, again, public settings need to be moved to private settings. But Instagram is one of the unsafest platforms to use.
What about, so as an outsider, I've been an au pair for 15 years. I've worked for some incredibly wealthy families, like stupidly wealthy families. And what I've realized is that there seems to be this very shallow outlook that children are being raised in, where it's all about having the latest of everything, and that external need to bolster their egos and being bolstered by others. And then, you know, being on Instagram and Fleet and Musically and all of these, and, you know, needing those likes where it's very superficial and shallow, yet they're not being taught that within themselves that they don't need that. You know, and that's also falling prey to that, that the more likes they have, the more people they have, the more popular they are, but it's all superficial and shallow. It's not actually about being comfortable with who and what they are, and, you know, keeping it within friends and not needing to go out searching for approval by random strangers and, you know, being bolstered on Instagram and things like that.
No, sure, but I think that's for everyone. I don't think that's one specific culture, one specific age, or race, or anything. That is across the board. All over.
You've got the stats, or I don't know what this is, but I mean, you have more representation statistically who traffickers are, and I know you say they can be anyone, but is it more foreign people that are coming into the country to get the children out, or is it equal? Could be South Africans trafficking, so it's got nothing to do with...
No one dominant.
Okay.
Sorry, I've got questions. These ladies have been had their hands up a lot. I'll come to you next, okay?
So you spoke a lot about how the younger the better approach me. So
Yes.
you spoke a lot about teenagers. I have, and quite a few of us in the back actually have young children.
Okay.
Ages
How old?
2 and 5 in my case,
Yes.
lots of 5-year-olds in the back row here. What are your top 5 tips to keep our oldies safe?
Okay, I'm going to come to the tips in a moment. I want to get some questions out because I could see there was a burning desire to really ask questions. I'm going to come to some of those tips as well. If I don't cover it, I'll come back to your question. But what I do want to say on that for the littlies, we run a program called Protective Behaviours. Has anybody heard about it? It is phenomenal. It is incredible. In fact, I would love to see every school make it compulsory that this gets run in their schools. And it's for the younger to sort of the 2 to 5. And we teach them how to identify their early warning signs. You'll be really surprised to know that children know, their instincts know when there's somebody not happy around them. They know before we even know. And very often what happens is because they're not taught on how to use that and identify with it, they don't know what to do with it. So it's kind of like just shunters out or develops into anxiety or whatever. But we actually teach them on how to deal with that and what that means and what to do in that situation if they are unsafe.
Are things like kids being snatched in public places, do you experience that? I mean, I always wonder if I'm walking through a mall,
Yeah.
you know, and I might turn and look at something and my daughter who's 4 is running around. Like, you know, there's that subconscious fear, but in your experience, does that thing happen?
It has happened, let me say that. How often, we've not come across that kind of situation a lot, but it has happened. So when my kids were little, they always had to be in a trolley. That was the deal. My son's old enough now to hold the trolley, but my girl goes in the trolley still. She's 8.
What is the most common, or is it hard to say? Like the most, and there's been stories about, you know, family restaurants and the Dross, or is it just anything goes? There's no specific pattern?
You take the Dross situation, for example. I mean, who would ever in a million years think that something like that could happen at a place like that? We've had calls in from specific well-known restaurants where situations have happened. A lot of people don't want to also expose those kinds of things for fear of, you know, their business and that kind of thing. But I'm speaking from experience. Those, you know, it can happen anywhere. It's just to be wise and diligent. You know, we need to just be real, and we can't allow our kids just to wander off and go and get their ice cream and come back and meet you somewhere. That's, unfortunately, we can't do that anymore. It's just the reality of it.
It's often very difficult to distinguish between what's imagined and what's reality. Like these questions in the front.
Yeah.
So I've basically been told that I should take down all my photographs of WhatsApp and any social media of my children.
Yeah.
For the reason of a photograph being taken of them, you go onto the dark web and you match these profiles and you basically then found out where we live, what cars we drive, the schools we go to, all the rest.
Yeah.
Is that reality or not?
So I wouldn't put my photos of my children up. The dark web is a reality. It's up to you though, whether you feel that that is going to be something to do for you and your family or not, but I wouldn't. Let me put it that way. Yes.
Given the inefficiency of our police system and the overwork in some cases, the complete incompetence in others, so you have to go and get a case number. What would the second phone call be? To your organisation or to who?
Yes, do that. We are more than happy, and we do. Day in and day out, we take calls. As long as I've got a case number or an inquiry number, we can absolutely intervene. Okay. And on the leaflets are our contact details. I just want to watch the time because I mustn't leave without giving you some methods. I must leave you with hope.
Tabitha, is there an age group that's targeted? I mean, I know you said your youngest victim was 1 and it goes all the way up, and I know it goes into adults as well, but with children at the moment, and that's where the hype seems to be. Yeah. Is there an age group that's targeted more or less, boys or girls?
So the average age, what I can say to you, is between 12 and 13. The average. Yeah, girls are more serious.
And there's no particular profile. They don't pick a race or a colour hair or an eye colour or a facial structure. It's
unless there's some specifics in there that is looking specifically for something within that, perhaps, but not to my experience.
There was a high-profile case recently about a 10-year-old boy in KZN who was taken from school and he was on the car march and he was found dead. Is there anything?
So that's what caused all the hype. That's what started it off, and that's when all the hysteria came in. At the moment, it's still sitting where it needs to sit in terms of investigation, so I'm not able to share any information on that.
For cross-border trafficking,
yes,
we found out that there might be some officials who are involved.
It's a good question.
The reason why I'm asking this is last December, regarding my kids, when you have to travel outside the country, you need consent from both parents.
Yes.
So I couldn't get consent from the other side, so we ended up, and this only came when we ended up at the station to sign the consent. So what happened was after, one of the police officers actually offered to do the consent so I can travel with the kids. So, I mean, I was taken aback to say, this is quite scary if the law officer can do this. The only thing that stopped me, I really want to spend Christmas with the kids. The only thing that stopped me was we were going through a process. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this. But to me, I walk away feeling so concerned.
See, so something like that, it's good to report those kinds of things. And those kinds of things you can report to us as well. We'll keep you anonymous. But it's good for us to hear those things and know those things as well. Because if that can be done for you, then where else is that being done? And you're a nice person, you know what I mean? But talking about unabridged certificates, you need an unabridged certificate obviously to exit the country. I know it's a pain. Do I agree with the way that they did it and how they've implemented it? No, but it has saved lives. We as a country, we import human beings and we export human beings. We have specific teams, and it's under the organization called Love Justice, who are specifically planted at OR Tambo, at Lanseria Airport, as well as every other airport that they are now implementing. And they are specifically trained to identify possible trafficking victims as well as traffickers that are coming through our airports. Now, I haven't had an updated statistic from them, but if I gave you that statistic, you'd be shocked at what they have been doing.
Isn't it also because our physical borders are so compromised?
Our physical borders are very compromised, but even through our time.
Where are they going? The ones that are leaving, generally?
The ones that are coming in?
No, that are leaving.
That are leaving. They are going to be trafficked into Europe, into America, could be any other country that they are sending into. And that can be under false pretenses. Maybe there's been a job that's been offered that side, all their documents are paid, all their documents are sorted and paid for, their flights are paid for. I'll show you a quick clip how easy it is.
Do you work together with immigration officers to train them what to look for?
Yes.
You do?
We work with every single government authority that needs to work in this field, which is very much part of the anti-human trafficking task.
We came into the country a while ago with my 3 boys. Yes. And as we came through to the immigration officer, she didn't even engage with my husband and I. She looked at both the passports and said, "What is your name?" Looking at my eldest. And he said, "My name is Brian. Are these 2 people next to you, are they your parents?" "Yes." What is this lady's name? He had to give up her name. What is that man's name? Who are these 2 boys next to you? So I was wondering, was that you've never experienced before? Is that due to...
Hallelujah!
Is that due to recent training? Because I mean, we travel a fair amount.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that before.
So we have
blown away.
Yes, that's
I mean,
so
I had a
good
big
to
fake
hear.
on my face as I walked through and I said, thank you for doing that.
Fantastic. I'm so happy. I've got goosies actually. Because we're actually doing something right. So that's great. Yeah,
Well done.
we're training police. Our police have not been trained nationally on human trafficking. So we trained, to date we've trained about 180 police officers on human trafficking, and we work very closely with all the local police stations. So we get a lot of our cases from people like yourself. You've been to a talk and you've been educated, our workshops mainly, or the police phone us and ask us to assist in the situation. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Visionary Schools, speaking directly to the students. I've even had the littlies, which has been amazing. And the one main thing that I teach them on how to protect themselves is to look at their God-given body and use what they have. Forget the pepper spray, forget the bat, whatever it is. Use what we have. Because when they learn to identify their early warning signs, the adrenaline kicks in and that power becomes incredible. And so even as someone as tiny as that or as tiny as me can actually protect themselves from someone very big and strong. And the first thing I teach them to do is scream. We've been living in a society where we've been telling our children to keep quiet. We keep telling our kids to be quiet, shh, don't embarrass me in the shop, don't do it. Please, moms and dads, we need to stop doing that as much as we can now. We need our kids to be vocal. They've got a voice and they need to learn to use it, especially in dangerous situations. Now, there's obviously the reality around. We don't want a kid running around the wall screaming their head off, but they have a voice and they need to scream, and they need to scream blue murder. And they scream and they scream and they scream. Traffickers, perpetrators, pedophiles, they don't like noise. They don't like any noise. Now, when your child identifies the early warning signs, before they are even lifted or captured or a hand to their mouth, they will start to scream. They will learn to do that because we teach them to do that. The second thing is, they've got nails. Your kids have got fingers and they've got nails. This is good for me because I need evidence. It's DNA under the nails that somebody tried to attack me, that somebody tried to kidnap me. They must use those. I teach them to use these till they see blood. They must use these full force. Anywhere, everywhere. And the other thing is their legs. Because the adrenaline that pumps through your body from your toes to your brain really pumps a lot of energy in your legs. And I teach them, obviously, how to kick. Now, we think it sounds so simple and obvious, but those 3 tactics have saved a lot of lives. So scream, use their nails, and use their legs to kick. Make noise so that people around them can see and hear that there's a problem. You as a mom know, or a dad, the difference between a scream, that is just a little scream, you know, and that scream. Now that's the scream we want to come out. Okay? And there's other things like teaching them to run to the nearest, safest person that they can find. Okay? If you think in context of what your children are doing, where they are going, ask yourself what can they do to help protect themselves. So if you drop them off at a specific area with other people, who can they go to in that area? If they dropped off at St. David's and something happens, can they run to a security guard? Is the security guard available between 4 and 5 when you drop your child off? I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so look at what you are doing with your children. And I always say to the kids, do not do something in your day that is unfamiliar to mom and dad. Don't ever do that. You must stick in the routine of what you need to do. Don't walk alone. Always have somebody with you. I do clear examples with children. It is unbelievable. The little ones will get up and come and get sweets. The older ones will scream, jump, hop, run to get a new iPhone. That's how easy it is. And as soon as a trafficker or a perpetrator knows your vulnerability and your need, they will use that as a tool to draw you in. And you think that it's impossible to happen, but I'm telling you, when you do it in action, it is unbelievable. So it's just, again, it's speaking to your children and talking about these things. Minimize the window of opportunity for anybody to do that to your kids. Please encourage your kids not to be on their cell phones when walking alone. Cell phones are currently the biggest distraction to catch children off guard. So you know this while we're walking. I mean, we all do it. You know, the kids are a lot more vulnerable walking and being on their phones. If they are alone, get them to run and use their voice to scream if they feel uncomfortable. There is this thing of you can use a code with your kid. So you can develop a code between you and your children. And that code is between you and the family. If somebody comes to pick up your child and doesn't have that code, the child knows not to go with that person, even if they're a family member. So I have had parents that have said to me that that's what they are implementing, and they feel safe and comfortable with that. It's just a suggestion.
Or a nickname and the real name.
Randomly check your children's cell phones. Please make sure you are doing this. It should actually be part of your weekly routine as a parent. Take their phones away and check their phones. Once a kidnapper has the number, the grooming starts. Always try to remember also the last clothing of what your children were wearing. Now you can go as far as to doing that. You can get fingerprints done and keep a copy of that. Make sure you've got copies of all their passports. All in one document in a file. All there ready and waiting. So that if there is ever, and I pray that there won't be, ever a need for you to prove some identification of your child that's gone missing, you've got everything in one place.
What's a fingerprints, passport?
Fingerprints, passports.
How viable is a hair sample?
A photo of them. Clear photo. And always try and remember the clothes that they're wearing on your last exit. Obviously, when they're on school grounds, they're in good hands and they'll say, "Are you shooting something?" "No." "Oh, you say you take a photo of them every morning." That's true. You start getting photo out. Identify birthmarks, tattoos. Oh, you can do these if you want to. Take photos of those things. The more evidence you have of your children, it's obviously the better. Never leave your child unattended in your car. Ever. Some of us do this, some of us have done that. It's okay, but please don't leave them in the car unattended. Okay. Any more questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. You might know, but I only found out for the first time last year. When you say it can happen to anyone, and we often feel we're safe, we're now safe environment and all that. But I think it was 11 or 12 years ago, Stephen Siebert was a student in St. David's, that boy that was kidnapped 2 days before Christmas and sexually assaulted and murdered in Ripley-Evans Bay. In a very upmarket area, he was St. David's boy, Stephen Siebert. He was one out of late headmistress that was hurting people. But then he was in grade 4. And that's what I said, I only found that out last year would have been his winter years. There was something said about it. And most people don't put it, so it just makes you realize that it can honestly happen to anyone.
The good thing is your school's doing everything possible to prevent that from you.
It wasn't at school, it was from his holiday.
But just for any of that kind of situation to happen.
It's like, what are the signs that you can identify that something's not right? Or you spoke about grooming. Like, what are the sort of signs that you should look out for, either in your child or in your circle?
Withdrawing is a big one. A lot of teenagers start to withdraw. Behavioral patterns are not normal any longer. Really choosing not to engage with you as a parent, and it's not because you've done something bad. Far from it. There's those clear signs. Those three are the clear signs that we've been exposed to where that's happened. And also, obviously, the crowd. It's taking a look at the crowd that our children are hanging around with. We had a young girl last year. Her mother was so traumatized because she went to a club, and it's not the, it's a pretty decent. If you want to say decent, it's as decent as it can get in terms of a club. And she was nearly trafficked to America. We got him arrested in America through another organization. And that was all through online technology, phone, Facebook. But the recruiter was in the club. A beautiful young girl was recruiting.
A girl was recruiting?
It was her friend. So that's your circle, the friends that our children...
You mean her friend was recruiting her, somebody in America?
So the recruiter made friends with her. That's what I'm saying.
So that's why I say it's so important to engage with the parents, and I'm sure you all do that. Be really, we've got to open our doors and start bringing people into our homes and sussing things out. It's the only way we can do it.
Parent and knowing what you know, do you ever allow your children to sleep out, ever?
No, you don't.
Son?
No.
Unless it's family or
unless it's family.
Yeah.
And then I have one or two very, very close families that have been friends with us for years and are also very passionate about what we do. And actually also work in the foundation, serving for the foundation. But they're also very clear on what our family message is, what we stand for, what we don't, what we will tolerate, what we won't. And so that's all.
I see a lot more families today are just, like my husband is like that, whether we're good or not, the only place they like to sleep is Granny and Grandpa and my sister, and she's single. So, and that's it. No friends, he's just said, that's it. And some parents don't take, some people, you always want to offend them when you say,
Yeah,
no.
look, it's very hard. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent if you do let your child sleep out. I'm not saying you're a bad parent at all. The reality is there's stuff out there. And when you think you trust someone, sometimes it's not always the case. And I hate to say that, it's the reality. I wish it wasn't that way.
How much of what actually happens because people are oblivious or choose not to realize and see? Like if you talk about the Dross case, these two particular witnesses that spoke out, that clearly saw that he had been watching the child, yet they didn't do anything about it. They sat and watched him watch her.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I have some input in that case, I'm trying to comment. Any other questions? Please don't tell me that you're all going to leave this country now. Okay, none of you. You're going to all fight for your children. I do want to say something to you, moms and dads. Do not think that this only happens here, in this country. Let me tell you something. If anything, I would want my children brought up here. If anything, I would want my children brought up here. It's just as right everywhere else as it is here.
And do you think the media, you spoke about it earlier, about the fake news and hype of the media?
Yes, please.
Hysterical parents.
Unfortunately, you cannot believe anything on the media at the moment. I don't trust the media one bit, and it's something we're trying to work on. If you receive messages and you would like to know if they're legit, you're welcome to pass them on, and then they are welcome to let us know, and I will confirm if it's legit or not. Because every case that involves any form of sexual offence to a child, we know about. So I can tell you firsthand if it's legit or not.
Do you have a broadcast group that we can maybe sign up to, and do you send out broadcasts and things like that?
I wouldn't do any work then. I'd be on that group all day, every day.
I just wanted to ask, a minor, so a child under the age of 18 found in the possession of pornography should be reported as a form of sexual abuse, am I correct?
Okay, so
there was an incident that I know of, personally that I know of, where a young child was found with very severe pornography on her cell phone and had interacted with another child on a sexual level. And I did report it. I did report the incident is being dealt with. But I was blocked off from that because I wasn't a parent and I wasn't close to the family, and so I was shut out of it. But what I was told is that in an instance like that, where a minor is found with pornography on the phone, in their possession, that it is deemed as a form of sexual abuse and should be reported as such.
Okay, so first of all, yes, it's not a good thing. But we're not here to arrest children left, right, and centre. We're here to help them, because the chances of those children fully understanding what they've got themselves into is probably highly unlikely. They probably don't realize what they've got themselves into. And so I'm not one to quickly jump at the fact that we must now get the police and do this. We need to first look at what's really going on. There's a deeper reason and a root to why that child is engaging in crime. And so we need to work with the families first. And then the next step gets taken. We don't want to, the trauma that will come upon that child by going that route instantly is just, it's horrible. So we need to just look at every case, and that's what we do. We work with the families and the child. Because so often, I'm sure some of us came here tonight and we didn't even know stuff. We were totally and utterly oblivious to it. Not because we want to be oblivious, but we just really weren't ever educated on it. It's the same with the kids. They actually don't realize what they are doing. So I'm not one to quickly bring on the law on children. It's first we need to look at what's really going on, because in all honesty, that child's crying out for attention. I just wanted to ask on the whole sleeping out thing, what is your view on sports tours? Not school, but like club or even sport, cultural tours. What? Oh, they're out there. Oh, sorry, no, I'm like, I'm coming with you. I'll just sit there, boy, I won't say anything. It's hard. There's so much choice and opportunity. How do you, again, it comes back to your child.
Yeah.
Again, your child is going to stand up and say, no, don't touch me like that. No, I cannot look at that. It's empowering your child.
But then look at that part-time case where they were, I mean, in all those hundreds of children that were fiddled with, surely one of them.
None of them were ever educated on what to do in that situation. None. None of them case very well. Not one of them were educated on what to do. And because so much fear was instilled in their lives and their heart around what had been happening, because the blame shifted to them and they felt guilty for what they had done. Although it wasn't even their fault, there's no way seeing it improves. Really don't. That is a prime example of how this can happen. If those boys were educated like we educate the kids today on how to protect themselves and what's okay and what's not okay, what is grooming, and it's subtle, but when the kids learn it, there's so much power in them speaking up. So again, it just goes back to your child. Did I help in any way? Yeah. Okay. So it's just a touch, though. It's just a touch. Yes.
Are we going to do that enough? I know we can do it as parents, but are we going to actually get this sort of training out to our kids? I mean, we'll pay for it, whatever it takes.
I'll answer your question now. So I know there are a few hands still up, and I am just conscious of time. If you do have questions, please let me know, and I'll pass them on to Tabitha and get the answers to you. I'm just conscious of time, and I know that you need to get back to your children. I'm sure you're feeling anxious about who they're with right now. So just with regards to the training, we are starting it. Earlier this year, we had Rape-Wise, or the Proactive Education Group. They came in. So was it them or the TDS? Was there? And we did some training in Mini-Marist in terms of my body, sort of green, red, and yellow zones and things to do. So we are trying to sort of integrate it into the curriculum. But it is also trying to link all the dots and seeing what's already been done in the life skill lessons and things like that, just so that we don't overload. Because, you know, this can be one of these things that the kids are overloaded with year after year and then we just shut off. So we've got to be very cautious how we do it. So just, yes, we are trying and we will do more of it. Just a couple of points I just wanted to touch on just with regards to the teenagers withdrawing. It is normal and natural and developmentally appropriate for them to withdraw. So if your teenager is withdrawing, don't freak out. But trust your gut as a parent. You know your kids. And if you're feeling like something's wrong, engage with them, or if you're not quite sure, come and chat. Okay, there's myself, there's Mrs. Kerr in the back, Mrs. Hudson there, we've got Mrs. Waller on the team, we've got an amazing wellness team here. So use us, ask us questions. A number of you have engaged with us already. I think some familiar faces. A good movie that you can watch, and you can watch with your kids, that demonstrates this grooming process and what can happen. It's a movie called Trust. I don't know if anybody's watched it, but it is one that you can watch where a teenage girl gets sort of sucked in, and unfortunately, you can imagine how the story goes. But it was certainly one that left me feeling quite shocked and quite terrified. Sure, I can't remember. I watched it quite a few years ago. So it is a bit of an older movie. But I just remember it really hitting me hard. And this was before I had kids. So it is one that you can just sort of expose yourself to and then see if it's something that you want to watch with your kids. I mentioned the Mini-Marist training. I also just wanted to touch on pornography. Pornography is not only nudity and sex. And the eyes of the law, you can correct me here, but it can also be explicit drawings, it can be suggestive drawings, it can be suggestive poses. It's not only nudity and sex, which is deemed as, in the eyes of the law, sort of what pornography is. It's anything that might be suggestive, and that's anything that your child creates or shares, in the eyes of the law, is creation or distribution, which is a criminal offense. You mentioned befriending people on Facebook. There was a story a little while ago where a headmaster created a profile and he used a pretty girl, which was somebody in his family, that he used her photo, and he befriended hundreds of people in his own school. Just sent them friend requests. And then he revealed it to the school to say, hey, this pretty girl is actually me. So kids, and this is one thing that you need to understand, it's a conversation I regularly have with parents, is that you as adults, for the most part, operate with your brain, operate rationally. And we deal with children, particularly teenagers, and think, it's so simple, it's rational, it's logical, why don't you get it? When you're dealing with children, we're dealing with emotional beings. They're not really using their brains. Even if they give that impression that they are very bright, they're still very, very emotional beings. So the need to be liked. We had Emma Sadlier here a couple of years ago. She asked who's got, how many followers on Instagram, and one boy put up his hand, he had 800 odd followers. That is about 15. I barely know 800 people, But you sign up with these profiles and you get all these likes and whatnot. And it's because there's this emotional need. And we've got to connect with that. What are kids needing? And that comes back to something which any talk you've been to, or if you've engaged with me, I'll push parental responsibility and your personal values at home. And David has touched on that a lot in terms of your home space, what you do. Your values are the only thing that you can really control in terms of what you teach your children. And then you send them out into the world. So really, really push that, emphasize that. Make your children know and make your friends and family know what your family values are. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I think very importantly, and this is quite shocking when I engage with parents, you need to know that for yourself. So I'll ask parents, well, what are your family values? And there's a bit of a, well, we think this is important. No, you've got to really know. So bear that in mind. Just emphasizing the parental responsibility. You can only do what you can do. Okay, you cannot lock your children in. I'm tempted to lock my child in the basement so that I can protect her, but you can't. And we do have to trust. Okay, you've got to trust your friends, trust your families, and trust that you are doing all that you can do. Earlier, I wanted to jump off the balcony because I did not want to think about this, but it's a reality. And I'm very, very thankful that Tabitha's come tonight and shared with us. I think I could feel the shoulders tensing up because it's a reality. And I've got no doubt that some of you just wanted to run away, like I did. But the truth is, this is real, and it can happen to anybody. Thank you for raising the fact that it did happen to one of our boys who would have matriculated last year. I know not very many people know that, but it's happened to one of ours. So, everybody's a target, so just bear that in mind. Tabitha, thank you very much for sharing your experience and insights with us. If there are any questions, please let us know. Please grab a pamphlet. And if you have any concerns or WhatsApp messages that you get, share them with us. We'll share them with Tabitha. We'll check if they're legitimate or not, and we'll communicate that with you. We will also share some of the information from tonight, and we'll just see how our first run of video went, so you may be able to access that as well. But on behalf of St. David's, I'd really like to say thank you very much for sharing with us. I've learned a lot. I'm petrified, but I'm going to use that to sort of grow and do what I can do. So thank you very much for sharing with us. We will will stick around for a couple of questions if you want to come and engage with us. Otherwise, thank you very much and travel safe.